That brings us to the cerebrum. The cerebrum is the main part of the brain, the thinking part of the brain, the part of the brain that controls our conscious perceptions and movement, as well as thinking, planning, and things like that. And it's what we think of the most when we think of the brain. If we were to slice through the cerebrum, we would see that the cerebrum has gray matter and white matter. The gray matter of the cerebrum is where we find the cell bodies. Notice that the cell bodies are found on the surface of the cerebrum, where they're closest to the cerebral spinal fluid and to the skull. The white matter is made up of the axons of the neurons. They look white because they're myelinated, and myelin is white. This white matter containing the axons is what's going to connect the cells of the gray matter to each other and to other areas of the brain and body. The gray matter is referred to as the cerebral cortex. The cerebral cortex is divided up into several layers, but we're not going to worry about what's going on in all of these different layers. I just wanted you to be aware that the cells of the cerebral cortex are arranged in layers that have different functions. The other thing that's important about the cerebral cortex is, in addition to the actual layers, is that the different areas of the cerebral cortex have different functions. Our brain is organized so different areas are going to be specified to control different things. I want to start with the front of the brain, here in the area called the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex of the brain is responsible for most of our higher level brain functions. This includes things like analysis, reasoning, planning, problem solving, personality, and things like that. Damage to the prefrontal cortex, to our thinking, planning, problem solving area, can cause changes in personality, as well as difficulty with reasoning or self-control. There's a famous example of this. Phineas Gage. Phineas Gage was a railroad worker who was known as a good foreman. He had a level head, he was good at planning and carrying through, and he was a strong leader. Once, when Phineas Gage was setting a charge in order to blast through some rock for the railroad, the charge went off prematurely, and it blew a 6-foot tamping rod up through his skull. You can see from the picture that it entered under one eye and then came out the top of his head and essentially obliterated the prefrontal cortex. Amazingly, not only did Phineas Gage survive the incident, he remained conscious for the wagon ride in town to the doctor, where they were able to remove some of the parts of the skull and attempt to do what they could to keep things clean and repair the damage. However, when Phineas Gage healed from this pretty horrible incident, he was never the same again. He no longer had the same sort of self-control, so he would use inappropriate behaviors and inappropriate language in different situations, and he no longer had the ability to plan or follow through or analyze a situation. So he wasn't an effective foreman anymore, but I find it amazing that he survived having that rod blasted through his skull. If we back up a bit and look at this strip of brain right here up at the top, this one right here highlighted in red on the model, this is the primary motor cortex. The primary motor cortex is important for controlling voluntary movement. Signals go from the primary motor cortex down to motor neurons in the spinal cord that then go out to our skeletal muscle to control the contractions of our skeletal muscle. So all of the conscious movements that we make are controlled from here in the motor cortex. Different areas of the motor cortex control different parts of the body. So there's what we call a map on the brain. If we start up here near the top, we have where the legs are controlled, so the parts of the brain nearest up here control the legs, and then we go along this way through the hip, the trunk, the shoulder, the elbows, and then we actually have a very large section of the primary motor cortex that controls what's going on with the hands. And that's because we have a lot of fine control of the motor movements of our hands. So that takes a lot of brain in order to be able to control those really delicate hand movements. We also have a lot of area dedicated to the control of our mouth, our lips, our tongue. And this is important not just for chewing food, but also for speech. The fact that we have a lot of very fine control of our lips and the shapes they make and the tongue and the way they affect the sound gives us our ability to say words. One of the things that's interesting about the primary motor cortex is that the signals here from the brain cross over to the other side of the body. So signals here from the right side of the brain are going to be controlling the left side of the body. And the signals from the left side of the brain are what control the right side of the body. Damage to this part of the brain is going to affect your ability to move a part of your body. If you have damage here in the hand area on the right side of the brain, you'll have trouble controlling the movements of your left hand. In front of the primary motor cortex, but before we get to the prefrontal cortex, we have what's called the motor association area. We're going to see that several times. We're going to point out a primary cortex and then an association area. The association area is not what's responsible for the exact movements, but your motor association area is where you can plan your movements, where you think about what has to be done in order to move. And this is what holds what's referred to as muscle memory. But I prefer to refer to as learned skill memory. Your muscles do not actually remember how to do things. It's your motor association area that remembers the pattern of muscle movements necessary to do things like balance while riding a bike, or play an instrument, or tie your shoes. Damage to this area of the brain can cause us to forget how to do some of those things that we've learned before. So you may damage the part of the brain that holds the information about the pattern of muscle movements needed to tie a shoe, and you would have to learn that again. Here in this motor association area is a special area called Broca's area. Broca's area is found only on the left side. So I have to turn this brain around so we can look at the left side. This is Broca's area. You can see that it's close to the area of the motor cortex that's controlling speech, and it's here in the general area of our motor association area. And that's because Broca's area is really important for the pattern of muscle movements needed for speech. This is where we hold our memory of how to say words. Damage to Broca's area can cause the inability to say words. Even if you know what the word is and you know what it sounds like and you want to say it, you might not be able to say it if you've had damage to Broca's area because your brain no longer knows the pattern of movements necessary to create that word. If we move back just a little bit from the primary motor cortex, we get to the primary sensory cortex. The primary sensory cortex is what receives information from our body about the general senses, things like touch, pressure, pain, hot, and cold, as well as proprioception and body position. This is where we actually feel those things. And just like we saw with the primary motor cortex, where different areas of the cortex control different parts of the body, different areas of the sensory cortex are receiving information from different parts of the body. So here we have the area that's going to be receiving information from the face. And if we move up here, we get to the fingers and the hand, and up here to the trunk, and then into the legs and the feet. Just like we saw with the motor cortex, where having a bigger area of the brain dedicated to a part of the body gives you better control of movement, having more of the sensory cortex dedicated to a part of the body gives us better sensation in that area, more fine ability to detect these senses. We find that we have a lot of sensitivity in the fingers, so a lot of the brain is dedicated to the senses of the hand and the fingers, and also the face and the lips. Damage to the primary sensory cortex can cause numbness or an inability to feel sensation from certain areas of the body. While we detect sensations in the primary sensory cortex, we can't really do much with that. We don't recognize what's going on, and we can't understand what that means. All we do is we just feel it. You can feel hot or cold or pain or pressure. Behind our primary sensory cortex is our sensory association area. And this sensory association area is where we can actually integrate the sensory information and have a sense of what that really means. Yes, something felt hot, but is that a good thing or a bad thing? Is it a dangerous hot or a pleasant hot? That can be determined here in the sensory association area. Not only does this integrate and interpret our sensory information, it also holds our sensory memories, so that I know what warm water feels like, even though I'm not feeling warm water right now, because that sensation is held in the sensory association area. Damage to this area can cause some interesting phenomena, including a lack of awareness of any part of the body. There's something called neglect syndrome, where when one side of the brain is damaged in the sensory association area, a person will tend to simply forget about that part of the body. There have been reported instances where a person will do one half of their hair and one half of their makeup and ignore the other half of their face because it's just not registering with them that it exists, because there's damage to the sensory association area. There are also situations where people have damage to this area of the brain and they are convinced that a body part does not belong to them. There's a story I like in the book, The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat by Oliver Sacks, in which a man fell out of bed because he woke up in the middle of the night and someone had put a dead cadaver leg in bed with him. And he panicked, grabbed the leg, and threw it out of the bed, only it was actually his own leg, and he did not believe the leg belonged to him. You could tell him to look at the leg and see it was attached, and he still insisted, no, that is not my leg, that is a dead leg. And in a lot of cases, the solution is amputation of what's otherwise a perfectly good functional limb, because the person simply insists that it does not belong. If we move down a little bit to the temporal lobe, we find our primary auditory cortex. This is where we receive the information coming from the ears about sounds. The primary auditory cortex is where we actually hear things, where the sounds go, but we can't figure out what's going on with it yet until that information gets sent a little bit further to the auditory association area. The auditory association area is what integrates the information from the auditory cortex and allows us to determine if we're listening to music or speech or sounds, and it also holds our auditory memories. So we know what a familiar voice is, and we know familiar pieces of music because those sounds are held in our auditory association areas. Nearby this area, but again found only on the left side, we have another special speech area. This special speech area is called Wernicke's area, and Wernicke's area holds our memories of what words mean. So when the sound of speech comes into our ears, it goes to Wernicke's area, and we're able to decipher those sounds into words that we can recognize. This is what holds the meanings of words, our memory of what words mean. Damage to Wernicke's area can lead to using made-up words or speaking gibberish because you simply don't know what the words you're saying mean anymore. If we go back towards the occipital lobe of the brain, the posterior part of the brain, we find all the way here at the very back our primary visual cortex. This is where the information from the eyes comes back to the brain, and this is where we actually see images. However, in order to interpret the image or know what it means, we have to have a visual association area. The visual association area integrates the information coming from the primary visual cortex and interprets it so that we know what we're looking at. This is also where we hold our visual memories. So even without seeing my children, I know what they look like because their visual memories are held here in my visual association cortex. This area is really important for recognizing faces, something I'm actually not very good at, as well as recognizing objects and patterns. I want to quickly mention just a couple more areas because we also have primary and association areas associated with our sense of smell. So we have a primary olfactory area up here underneath the brain toward the front where we actually receive the information from our nose about smells, about scents. And then there's an association area, an olfactory association area with that can interpret the information and hold our memories of what things smell like. We also have primary and association areas associated with our sense of taste. We have a primary gustatory area that's going to be receiving information from our tongue about what we're tasting, and an association area that allows us to interpret and integrate that information and remember what things taste like.